As you said, my name is Michael Darr. My presentation today is going to be a little bit different than some of the others, at least in the way I'm going to present it. I'm going to present it more from a project manager view of a lessons learned from building the taxonomy and indexing 140 plus years of content. So just for informational, who is the American Chemical Society? We're a nonprofit organization. We're a champion for chemistry for our practitioners and global community members. Part of the ACS family, we have the ACS Publications Division, CNEA News, CAS, and AACT, or American Association of Chemistry Teachers. I'm going to focus more on ACS Publications, which is recognized as the leading publisher of authoritative scientific information. And we have 60 plus peer-reviewed journals ranked most trusted, most cited, and most read. For reference for our products, we cover the full spectrum of chemistry, and we have published 1.3 million research articles, 100,000 news stories, 35,000 book chapters, and we have our ACES reagent chemicals reference and standards as well. So, where am I starting from? So in 2016, we worked in partnership with CAS, our sister division, to develop an initial taxonomy for use with ACES Omega, our new multidisciplinary open access journal. So we worked with them. They came to us with already a very large lexicon for us to find a place inside of. And we were able to leverage the content being indexed by CS scientists. And we were able to put that into our normal production life cycle and get terms just in time for publication, though noting this was for a relatively small set of content since ACES Omega had just launched. We then assigned those terms and uploaded them to a delivery system and what we have through our Out-of-Palm platform. And so we displayed those on the page and how to browse for that journal. So we decided in our second project, where do we need to go now? So we needed something that was a little bit more customized for the needs of our actual publications content. We wanted to classify all of our content now, and we needed to be able to handle, the volume of articles we were publishing every year and do so in a timely fashion. We were just in the midst of a redesign, and so we wanted to make sure this integrated nicely into the redesigned website and lay some groundwork for where we were going to go for expanding our use of our content. Lessons from building a taxonomy. So one of the things we noted is, we didn't have a lot of experience with taxonomy. So, one of the things we would have liked to have done a little bit better was make sure we gathered more information on best practices and other experiences right at the beginning. Try to get that information up front so that kind of helps build us as we go forward. You need to make sure you get early agreement from all the business owners on requirements for building the taxonomy. You'll have the people with, who are kind of the content domain experts, our editorial group. But we also had the platforms that were going to be displaying this. So you had their kind of UI and UX engineers that would differ on what the customer and product needs were. So the earlier you can establish those clear decision-making roles and get, consensus on what is really needed, that be really helpful in not having problems later on. Be aware of complications due to polyhierarchy. We just couldn't get around it. We had to have polyhierarchy. But the downsides to that is it makes content discoverable under a subject area which it may not pertain. You need multiple terms to give context, and just a term might look out of place, if you found an article just on a term. We even had prospective authors that try to justify why they were, trying to submit to a journal based on the fact that they saw that subject under that journal's individual, browse feature for the taxonomy. But it was just because, again, without context, it looked like it fit under that subject area, but it really didn't. There we go. Ensure there's enough time and budget to enable sufficient collaboration between taxonomy consultants and internal subject matter experts. We had a nice one-day workshop with Access Innovations and our subject matter experts, and it ended up just not being enough time. We had so much to go through. So make sure you budget more than enough time for that. Establish live documents for more interactive collaboration. That makes it easier for people to see what's happening, what's being accepted for the changes, and everyone's on the same page, instead of just sending files back and forth. We were big into, looking at the content through random sampling, but the downsides we found from that was that you might get a lot of content that, wasn't high value. You needed a higher percentage of research content versus some of that front matter content you have in a journal. You want to make sure you have enough content that's from kind of highly cited or highly viewed articles to make sure that everything's looking right as what you're getting for your results. Give more time to building content for customer research. So we decided to go through customer research, and we knew we had to get the content we needed, but then we didn't factor in what tools were we going to be using to kind of interact with our customers as we showed them and wanted their feedback. And so it actually took us extra time that we weren't expecting to build the content necessary for those tools. One of the actions we took is we chose to have a full taxonomy and a visible taxonomy. So a full taxonomy was what was needed to accurately classify the content, but the visible taxonomy was kind of a subset of that full taxonomy. It was mainly the top levels and which of those branches we wanted to keep and which terms even with those branches we want to keep for display on our platforms. So if we had 10, 12 levels deep of a taxonomy, but we only wanted to be able to show 3 levels in our browse feature and only down to 4th level terms on the article, we had to set that up. So as we talked about engaging customer focus, just some notes from that is we found in individual testing that the testers didn't have any real preference on the structure. So we actually had 2 versions we were testing against, from 2 different ways of people were thinking we should go. And, people really didn't care for the most part. I'm sure you would find little things here and there, but not enough to make a real decision. We actually because of that, we went into A/B testing. We actually deployed both taxonomies to our platform and giving certain journals one and certain journals the other, and then flipping that, and doing that testing again with the opposite taxonomy for each. And while we were able to see kind of, how people interacted with it one way versus the other, in the end, it wasn't completely clear that there was a real winner. People could argue one way or another based on the data, but it just wasn't clear. So we just noticed that, again, it's hard to see that customer preference sometimes. They really care about what terms you put on their articles, though, as everyone knows. And so here's just a view. This is what our visible taxonomy display looks like. So where you have your first level, can get down in your second, and choose those second little terms, or get down into the third and check those. All right, lessons from classifying content. Wanted to note that if you have PDF content, it's probably best to evaluate how accurately you can classify that content in an automated fashion. We had 120 years of PDF-only content. And it ended up being, because of that length of time and how different that content could be, and how the OCR kind of behind the scenes that was built into those PDFs when they were scanned, just didn't make it easy to programmatically identify the content consistently. We even ran into issues because it's scanned PDFs. You had preceding and following articles, and that caused issues where, especially with the preceding articles, if there were experimental data at the end, it was hard to remove that content to not unduly influence the article we were trying to index. Another thing we said, engage platform architects early to understand fully the existing capabilities and limitations. We worked with Adapon a bit on this, but we have our immediate team to work on, but sometimes those people don't have all the information. And so just noting that sometimes you really need to go to that source, people like Han, who know more of everything that really is in place, and what could you leverage. So getting that kind of information earlier on. Something that wasn't in place yet until 2020, but it was after we was wading into the text of the article. We noted in our testing that certain sections, like our experimental sections, unduly at times influenced the terms that were classified. So if you can weight the terms, giving higher weight to title and abstract and throwing lower weight on the experimental sections, that could be beneficial to making your results more accurate. So some of the actions we took, so we developed our own internal process that kind of takes the results of the full classification that we get from data harmony and creates our top 5 terms from our visible taxonomy. So we did some, in addition, another thing we took is we went into validating our index results. So we had internal subject matter experts, those who helped us create the taxonomy, also then reviewed and made sure that we were getting 85% or better accuracy as we did this. And then, of course, we went and used external customers to verify those accuracy of terms displayed as well. We found a nice little piece of software that would allow us to basically give them an article with its abstract, its title and abstract, and give them a set of terms and let them choose which ones they would have applied to it, see how accurate we were. We also, from the first time, we ran into it with ACS Omega that we would have issues with terms. We just got some, bad indexing at times for papers, where a term or two needed to be removed or changed. So this time around, instead of having a manual process for that, we actually created an interface for our editorial team so that they could look up a paper and go and change the terms themselves. And once those terms changed, that would update our databases and send new content up to our platform and get things changed. So that was a nice thing we took that kind of made that easier, reduced some of the time needed to spend on that. So that was all I had for today. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but I know I had a little less time, so I want to leave some time for questions.
We do have a couple questions. What method did you use to mitigate OCR recognition errors? Was there steps in the actions we took slides? I wanted to make sure.
So in the end, we actually had to not index our back file content that was PDF. We couldn't mitigate the errors in the end. We couldn't get to an accuracy level that was sufficient. So we tried 2 or 3 different, OCR tools to try to get better results, but we just couldn't, between either the tools themselves or the the actions activation we tried to take to, chromatically not, get us into certain content. We just couldn't get accurate results. Our decision was that we'd either have to wait till the tools could get a little bit better or until we could convert it to XML for once.
That's a tough nut to crack, I know. What was the name of the software that you used to measure the accuracy by subject matter experts?
We didn't use a tool. It was more making sure that, so if we gave our subject matter experts the 5 terms we assigned to the paper, they agreed that 80, how many of those terms were correct. So we're all 5 correct, we're 4 correct, we're 3 correct. And then, going through and making sure the amount of, correctness there was good.
Okay. When you mention a desired accuracy level, what is acceptable? How did you balance precision and recall?
I guess we went with a more simple approach of just making sure for the visible terms we were going to show that, all 5 of, as best either all 5 or 4 of those 5 terms were consistently accurate for the article and more likely the best terms that we could have applied for our taxonomy. So it was very, as I said, at the beck and call of what our subject matter experts determined. Our subject matter experts were all doctorates that worked for our organization, whether they worked in editorial development or our journal production team.
Okay, and can you elaborate more on your subject matter experts? How many did you have, and was this their full-time effort, etc.?
Yeah, no, I wish. We were using our managing editors and and some of our journal production staff. So typically they were giving partial time to us. They were doing their normal jobs, and we were trying to carve out time in their normal jobs for them to assist us. So whether, it might take, someone only 5 days to get something done or something, we were asking that to be done in 3-4 weeks so that they could make their time to assist us. I want to say, if we had, I can't remember even how many we had, if we had 12 subject areas in the end as our top level areas, we assigned, at least 1 to 2 people for each area. And there was some overlap. It kind of depended what their expertise was. Sometimes some of these areas had like 3 experts. So it was based on the people we had available and making sure we had sufficient coverage for all the subject areas. We did find that even in the end, we had one sub part of a subject area that we just didn't cover enough. There was an expert we should have included. So, you do your best you can. You're there unless you're going to go hire people.
Yeah, subject matter experts are always a challenge as well. You mentioned you have 120 years of PDFs. How can you scan these image-based PDFs to the text and index these?
So,
I think what you said was,
yeah. So, what happened, of course, is, we took all of our print content, we scanned it at some point with a vendor, and that vendor provided some underlying OCR text at that point in time. And that's what's, published on our website if you get a PDF for something, prior to 1996. So that's the kind of content we were working with. And then, we were providing that content access innovations, and they were trying a variety of tools to, OCR those scanned images.
Yeah. Okay, that's all the questions we have, Michael. So I want to thank you very much for joining us.